Welcome to the last module of fire and explosion. In this particular module, we will have the remaining part of fire extinguisher as well as how to use the appropriate method for the use of the fire extinguishers. So, let us have a brief look at what we have studied in the last modules. We have discussed about the fire and explosion, discussed about the anatomy of a fire triangle. We have discussed about the various kind of flammability characteristics like LFL and UFL. We have classified the explosion along with its definition, discussed about the vapor cloud explosion, BLEVE, dust explosion, and in the last module we discussed the different class of fire along with 3 different type of fire extinguishers. Now, in this particular module, we will discuss the remaining part of fire extinguisher. What is the fire extinguisher anatomy, so that you can aware about how to use at appropriate place and when it should be used. What kind of different fire extinguisher applications, how to use the fire extinguisher in a proper manner, what are the guidelines for the fighting of fires and firefighting decision criteria. Now, we have discussed the different type of fire extinguishers. So up till now, we have discussed about the air pressurized water fire extinguisher, carbon dioxide based fire extinguishers, dry chemical based fire extinguishers. Now, in this particular module, we will start with the wet chemical fire extinguishers. Now, this wet chemical fire extinguisher is applicable for class A, class C and class K of fire. This is one of the kind of wet chemical fire extinguisher. Usually they are having 10 to 12 feet effective range. So, you must know that from where or how proximity you have to use this fire extinguisher. On class K fire, don't use until after the fixed extinguishing system has deactivated, because it has certain other disadvantage associated with it. Extinguishes by cooling and forming foam blanket to prevent the reignition. So, this is the added benefit of this wet chemical fire extinguisher. Foam, usually this is another class of fire extinguishing agent, and it is one of the most common type of fire extinguishment media, that is foam. This is the water based foam concentrate solution used on class A or class B type of fire. Sometimes we may use different additives. So, additive depend on the compatibility with the fuel, that is the niche source of fuel. Some foams are approved for the polar solvents, because the solvents may sometimes like hexane and etc. they may act as a fuel for different class of fire. They are not at all suitable for class C fires and cannot be stored or used at a freezing temperature. So, these are some advisories for using the foam type of fire extinguisher, because ultimately your aim is to extinguish the fire. There are certain halogenated agents, they are acting as a fire extinguishing media. They are produced from the family of liquefied gases, clean agents. They are twice as effective as carbon dioxide, and they are having the 2 categories. One is the halones, and they are having very limited uses, and halocarbons, they replace the halones. So, sometimes because now people are using halocarbons, so they replace the halones. So, halones, they are having very limited use, a very specific use for the extinguishment of fire. Usually stored as a liquid and discharged under very high pressure. Now, vapor mist disrupts the chain reaction. This is one of the added benefit of this halogenated agents. Dissipate in the windy condition, displace oxygen in a confined space. So, these are some of the added benefit of these halogenated agents. One advisory is that the halon 1211 should rarely be used, because it creates the environmental problem. There are certain dry powders being used as a fire extinguishment media. Now, they used on the combustible metal fires that is attributed to class D fire. Usually they are stored in a granular or powdered form, and this forms solid crust over the burning material. So, it can cordon off the fuel supply with the atmospheric oxygen. So, it creates a blanket, and that is why the fire is extinguished. Commonly used as agent as sodium chloride or a graphite powder. Avoid splatter and water. Now, this is the fire extinguisher anatomy. You can think upon the basic methodology and basic anatomy of this fire extinguisher. They are having the discharge lever. So, you can press it with the help of this carrying handle to release the pins. The pin, they are located over here, that is the discharge locking pin and seal, so that accidentally if anybody presses, then definitely it will come out. Now, here this is a pressure gauge, and usually it is not found in the CO2 type of extinguisher. The pressure gauge tells you that what is how effectively you can use this one, and whether there is any efficiency left in this particular type of fire extinguisher. So, it is quite obvious that the needle should be in the green paraphernalia, so that this is the safest zone, because you cannot go with the excessive pressure, and if pressure is too lean, then definitely it will not give the desired result. This is the discharge hose through which you can direct the chemical or water to the place of fire. This is the discharge nozzle, and sometimes the people are using the discharge orifice so that you can direct towards the fire. Here, this is the data plate where you can put the relevant information, that is for which class of fire it is to be used, like A, B, C, D, etc. At what point of time it is being refilled. So, because I told precisely that the dry chemicals or CO2 etc., they are having some shelf life or expiry. So, if it is nearly approaching the expiry, irrespective of the pressure in question, you need to recharge it or refill it. Apart from this, there are certain other regulatory information being placed. One is that who is responsible for refilling it, who has manufactured it, etc. And some of the data plate, they are having endorsed type of advisory that it is to be used for the specific type of fire for which this particular extinguisher is designed for. This is obviously the body of the fire extinguisher. Now, in a nutshell, you can see in this particular slide that the different class of fire and effective extinguisher types. That means you can have a look, or you can have an idea that what are the different applications of these fire extinguishers. So, class A, trash wood paper, usually pressurized water, multi-purpose dry chemicals being used, larger size halons and wet chemicals. Class B, the liquid greases type of fire, that is multi-purpose dry chemical and carbon dioxide in halon. Class C, the electrical equipment, the dry chemicals, carbon dioxide, halon and the wet chemicals. The combustible metal, in which you can use the metal as a fire extinguishing media. Cooking media, you can always use the wet chemical extinguisher, but do not use the water based things, because water may spatter the things. So, these are the advisories that usually they are supposed to be put on the data plate of a fire extinguisher. Now, how to use the fire extinguisher? Usually we may follow the pass system. Now, pass system says pull, aim towards the fire, squeeze means you just put the horn, put the lever and sweep away like this. So, your industrial workers etc. must be trained for this type of pass system. Now, first thing is that how to use it, that is the pull the pin. As I show you in the anatomy of a fire extinguisher, there is a pin. So, you need to pull that pin out. This will allow you to squeeze the handle, these handles, in order to discharge the extinguishing media towards fire. Then you need to aim the fire extinguisher like this. It is shown in this cartoon, that aim at the base of the fire, and you need to hit the fuel. If you aim at the flames, the extinguishing agent will fly right because of the density difference through without stopping the fire, because at this particular point you may experience the density difference. So, if you aim it towards the fire, then definitely you may experience that it will fly right away. So, it will not impart the desired result. So, that is why you need to aim at appropriate place. Then you need to squeeze the top handle. So, squeezing the handle opens a valve that releases the pressurized extinguishing agent from the fire extinguisher. So, these type of advisories always put on the fire extinguisher. Then sweep from side to side like this. You can go like this, you can go like this, so that you cannot generalize the things. So, you sweep side to side and you keep on this particular process until the fire is completely out or completely extinguished. So, start using the fire extinguisher from a safe distance, because your safety is prime, at around 6 to 8 feet. It all depends on that what kind of fire. If it is excessive fire, then definitely you won't be able to reach 6 to 8 feet because of the generation of excessive heat. Now, after approaching to the safe distance, then slowly move forward if possible. Sometimes if you see that the fire is extinguishing in this zone, then you may take the liberty to come a little bit forward to approach towards the fire. Once the fire is out, keep an eye on the area in case it reignites. Again, the reignition of this is a dangerous situation, because in that particular case you may not have a supporting things with you, because sometimes your fire extinguisher may be exhausted. So, you can have again look up different type of extinguisher, then works by, then effective agents which you can use, that pressurized water, it works by cooling, carbon dioxide smoothing, multi-purpose dry chemical smoothing, halon the smoothing, combustible metals they again is smoothing, and the wet chemicals cooling is smoothing. So, different type of effective agents. Now, the purpose of this particular table, that it can be placed at a different location of your workplace, so that your plant workers, your industry persons, they must be acquainted with that what kind of fire it is and what kind of extinguishing media they need to use, because again this I am repeating it again, that it is a very case sensitive things. So, whenever we use this fire extinguishing protocol, then you must have a RACE protocol, that is rescue, alarm, contain and extinguish. So, first thing is that you need to rescue yourself, then you put an alarm so that everybody is aware there is a scenario of fire, then you must contain the fire extinguisher with you and try to extinguish the fire. Now, there are certain guidelines for fighting of the fire. So, fire can be very dangerous, and you should always be certain that you will not endanger yourself, because if you are himself or in danger, then definitely you won't be able to extinguish the fire, as well as you won't be in a position to safeguard for other people. So, for this reason, when a fire is discovered, assist any person in immediate danger to safety. If it can be accomplished without risk to yourself, don't put yourself in danger too. Call the firefighters or activate the building fire alarm. The fire alarm will notify the fire department and other building occupants. If the fire is small, and only after having done these two things, you may attempt to use an extinguisher, appropriate extinguisher, repeat, appropriate extinguisher to put it out. Now, before deciding to fight the fire, keep certain things in your mind. You must know what is burning. So, based on your engineering knowledge, based on the knowledge of your 5 ingredient cup of tea, you must know that what is burning. Now, if you do not know what is burning, you will not know what kind of fire extinguisher is to use. So, that is why the proper display and a proper knowledge of that particular process is essential. Even if you have an ABC fire extinguisher, there may be something in the fire that is going to explode or produce toxic fumes. So, you are providing a remedy to one problem, thereby you are creating another problem, and toxic fumes are sometimes extremely dangerous, and you cannot avoid the generation, because if fire takes place at a working place, you may have a process. Apart from the process, you may have certain other things like furniture, you may have a pen, you may have a papers, etc. So, these things may produce some toxic vapors. So, be aware about these type of toxic fumes. Chances are you will know what is burning, or at least have a pretty good idea, but if you do not, let the fire department handle it, because they are acclimatized, they are trained, and their equipments are well designed to handle such type of system. Like if there are toxic fumes, then they may have a mask, etc. And one more thing, one more important thing is that in case if you are using the firefighters or the fire department, then you provide adequate information to them, so that they practically they may be aware, they should be aware about the scenario. Now, is the fire spreading rapidly beyond the point where it is started? You must know. The time to use a fire extinguisher is at the beginning stage of the fire, because whatever we studied in the previous module as well as in this module, the fire extinguishers, they are used for small fires. Now, if it is beyond control, then definitely you need to call the fire department or fire brigade, etc., because they are seasoned to handle such type of situation. Now, if the fire is already spreading quickly, it is best to simply evacuate the building, so that you save yourself as well as the employees of your unit or a department, because you will not be able to do much, because a small fire extinguisher will not do anything in that particular scenario. Then you need to follow the let it go policy. That means the fuel consumption of fuel may end up the fire, and sometimes the heat liberated may end up with the fire. So, its best policy is that to simply evacuate the building. Now, as you evacuate the building, close the door if there is one behind you, which slow down the spread of smoke and fire. The reason is that it will cut short the supply of oxygen. So, at least you will be in a position to remove one arm of fire triangle. The other arm can be removed by adopting the let it go policy, that means burn whatever is there. The final rule is to always position yourself with an exit or means of escape at your back before you attempt to use a fire extinguisher to put out fire, because sometimes it may lead to some technical problems, so that in case of any problem, you may be in a position to evacuate the things. In case of extinguisher, sometimes it may happen that extinguisher malfunctions or something unexpected happens, you need to able to get out very quickly. You do not want to become trapped. And one more thing is that in case of the propagating fire, then there may be a chance that the environment may become oxygen deficient. So, you may feel the suffocation. So, if you are near the exit, then definitely you may be in a position to handle the situation effectively. Now, we must know that what should be the criteria for firefighting. So, there are 5 different points need to be addressed. First point is that no department emergency protocol, and evacuation routes. So, and that's why if there is a public gathering or if you are residing in a multi-storied, there is a separate fire exit. And if you wish to see the movie, then definitely you will find that the light of fire exit is always there. So, you must know that the emergency protocol as well as what is the evacuation route in case of any eventuality. Know the location of extinguisher in your area and how to use them, as well as you must train the other person, those who are working in that particular area, that how to use those fire extinguisher. Because if there is any fire and if you don't have any clue that how to operate this fire extinguisher, then definitely you will be trapped in the bad scenario. Then always sound the alarm regardless of the fire size. The reason is that everybody should aware, and in case of propagating fire, then some other person from the different department may come forward for the rescue as well as to help you out from the destructive fire. You need to avoid the smoky conditions because sometimes it may lead to the toxic situation as well as the oxygen deficient environment. And we have studied about the IDLH, the immediate danger to life when we are having the oxygen concentration less than 19.1%. So you need to avoid the smoky condition because it is a health hazard as well as it may lead to the fatality. Now, you must ensure if you are heading that particular department, you must ensure that area is evacuated. So, usually you may follow the head count process. You must know that how many persons they are working in that particular process area, and ask them to leave and assemble at an open space, open and safe space. So, you may head count. So, by this way, you can say that, and you ensure that area is evacuated. So, nobody is entrapped within the plant. Now, don't attempt to fight unless alarm is sounded. Fire is small and contained. You have a safe egress route and can be reached without exposure to fire. Available extinguishers are rated for size and type of a fire. And if you are in any iota of doubt, then you must evacuate along with your co-workers. So you must evacuate the workplace. Now again, this type of chart or this type of play card should be placed at appropriate place, that what kind of fire extinguisher available at your place, what kind of fire or what class of fire it can you can use that particular fire extinguisher, and it should be properly mentioned that do not use this type of fire extinguisher in such a class of fire. Just for the sake of an example, let us have a case of electrical fire. So it is always advisory that do not use the water based fire extinguisher. Do not use the fire hose reels, that is the supply of water. Do not use the foam based fire extinguisher. You can use the CO2 type of things, you can use the powder type of things. So sometimes you may need the fire blanket. So be aware, and all the persons, those who are working in the sensitive area, must aware this type of chart, must be trained for this type of scenario. That is a crucial thing. And so in this module, we have discussed about the fire extinguishing criteria. We have got the clue that what kind of the different fire extinguishers available as on date and how to use them, what should be the protocol of firefighting. For more studies, you can look of these references. Those references are enlisted over here. And for if you are working in a system where you are the boss, then definitely you must train all those workers. So by this way, we are ending up this fire and explosion chapter as well as the module. Thank you very much.